Good afternoon and welcome to everybody who is slowly connecting. We're just going to wait a few seconds more to make sure everyone gets into the Zoom successfully.
Go back to my boss and business services and see what they say about it.
Okay, I think we can get started, everyone. Hello again and welcome to today's virtual town hall meeting. My name is Beth Noel. I'm the Director of Marketing and I will be your host today. Before President Mabry begins his remarks, I just want to go over the process for participation. In order to make sure that everyone can hear clearly and there's no audio feedback, all participants will be muted. Please note, video and audio is being recorded. You can choose to mute your device's camera by clicking the video camera icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. After a brief presentation, there'll be a time set aside for questions and answers. You can submit questions via the chat bubble at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer these in the order that they're received. The president and senior leadership will respond to as many questions as possible. A log of all questions submitted will be automatically generated, and anything we are unable to address in the time allotted, we will follow up either individually with the asker or include that information in an upcoming college-wide email. A recording of this session will be made available for community members who were unable to participate today, and it will be accessible from the president's webpage. I now turn the town hall over to President Mabry.
Thank you, Beth, and welcome everybody. It's good to see everybody. I'm sitting down here in Bedford where it's getting darker and windier, and we'll see what the weather brings today. So it could be interesting through this meeting. I just want to welcome our board chair, James Campbell, who's on the call on the meeting, and also our student trustee, Daniela Danqua. And it's great to have both of them on the meeting today. And I want to thank everybody who logged in today. And it is always fun to see those folks I don't get to see anymore. And really nice to see you. At some point when it's not my turn, I'll get to scroll through and see if I can see a few more folks here. It always makes it feel like we're a bit more connected, at least in the virtual world. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask Alexandra to put up the PowerPoint. It is going to take a little bit while because we have a bit to keep you up to date on, but we will have plenty of time for questions at the end. So as we said, if you have a question while we're going through this, we're going to answer them at the end. So just put it in the chat and then we'll handle the questions at the end. Okay, so as we all know, we're teaching, learning, and working in the virtual world these days. And it is an interesting learning experience as we go through this. Next slide, please. Today's agenda is really a series of updates that we'll go through, and then some time for discussion on fall and spring in a period of question and answer. We have a lot to cover today, but it's really trying to do our best to keep the college community informed and up to date on where we are. But as I said, there should be plenty of room for question and answer at the end. Next slide, please. I do want to acknowledge all the work that all of you have done this semester to keep us on track. The work of the faculty to put all their courses online and all the work they are doing to support student learning in the virtual world. I know this is a tremendous effort, and I really appreciate all you've put into this and all you're doing to help our students succeed. The instructional support staff have also been amazing in helping out the faculty and sorting out all the issues as we learn and as we grow and as we work our way through this extraordinary semester. I want to thank all the enrollment services, admissions, financial aid staff, the student accounts, the advisors. I know I'm going to miss somebody, but all those who did a huge amount of work to get students registered and to the classes at the start of the semester. You've been swimming against a very strong tide, but you never gave up. You always keep going. You're doing some great work. And a big thanks to the staff who have been reaching out to students and helping them every step of this incredible journey. You're helping to keep them moving forward and on their path to their educational goals. I also want to recognize the work of IT to keep the virtual world up and running and to answer all the questions from faculty, staff, and students, and even myself when I've called them and asked for some help on a few things. And also I want to recognize, the finance and HR professionals who are working hard every day to keep the college running. Our facilities crews, I just saw them out the window. They're out here keeping the campuses clean and running smoothly. Public safety has been doing everything from monitoring the campuses to handing out computers and class supplies. And I know this is not easy for any of you, but you're doing a great job. And last but not least, I would really like to thank my cabinet members who have been working too hard and all wake up at 3:30 in the morning, right, Phil? And, are worrying about the college, are making their lists and really trying to get a little bit of sleep as they keep everything moving forward. Next slide, please. We are still responding to the pandemic that is all around us at this point. We have learned a lot, and we have grown and adjusted and made the necessary changes to put in place the protocols and practices that will keep us all safe. So as we've pointed out here, our first priority is to the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. And we always keep that in mind in every decision we make. So Patrick, you want to pick it up from there, please?
Sure, glad to. Good to see everybody in this version. I want to also echo the president's comments and thank everybody for their cooperation throughout the last 7 months here on this. I know we've asked a lot and we've kind of tasked you with a lot, but the protocols are working and the measures that we put in place continue to work for us moving forward. I want to give a big shout out to IT and marketing and public safety folks for implementing these QR codes with student affairs to have us checking in electronically at the buildings, because that's been a tremendous asset to us using those QR codes off the app. It's been extremely helpful, and it's a very efficient way to chase any of these sign-ins if we have to in the event of a case. I am very happy to say, as the president reported, as you can see on the screen there, we've only had one case that has been confirmed positive over the course of the last few months, and it was involved a student who was not on campus and had not been on campus for quite some time prior to testing positive. And the way we have it set up is that if it's a student case, Pam Flaherty, Rebecca Newell, Pat Bruno, the folks from her shop follow up with the student to make sure that student has everything he or she needs to successfully complete their semester or take whatever measures or steps are needed to help them get to the end of this semester and the next, queuing up the next semester for them, which is what's happening. And then Mary Emmerich and the folks over in Human Resources are ready to do the same thing should we have anything with a employee case that tests positive. So fingers crossed, we'll be staying on this very positive and healthy track that we have experienced. But very significant development that I want to make sure folks know about is that we have a partnership with the University of Massachusetts Lowell and the Broad Institute out of Cambridge to do asymptomatic testing for any of our people up at University Crossing at the top of Merrimack Street. We've so far processed about a little over 4 dozen of our people that have gone through the testing procedure. And I think anybody that's experienced it will tell you it was a very efficient and quick process. The results from those tests are coming back in less than a day. I think 14 hours was one of the turnarounds from last week's cases. And if anybody, we prioritized anybody that was doing face-to-face experiences first for any of the faculty, staff who are dealing with any of the walk-ins or anybody's doing face-to-face classes, as well as the students who are on campus for those face-to-face, to give them first priority at those. We do have openings that are available. The tests take place on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons from 2 to 4. They are free to you because of the partnership we entered into with the university. And we're going to be continuing this moving forward to make sure we can stay on top of this. So anybody that does want to access those tests, you cannot have any symptoms upon entering University Crossing. So this is not for symptomatic cases, asymptomatic only. Just send us an email to emergencymanagement@middlesex.mass.edu, and you'll get a confirmation and an email on Friday that will provide you with all the details you need to access the test. So don't be afraid to utilize any of those options for the week coming. You register now for the following week is the way it's set up. So please avail yourself of that resource. And thank you again. Thanks to everybody who's been helping on this.
Thanks, Patrick, for all the work you and your team have been doing on this. Next slide, please. And I just want to make sure that as this slide says, we encourage everybody to get a flu shot this fall. I got my shot a week ago, finally on my 3rd try. First time, 2 times I made appointments, they had run out by the time I got there. That was interesting. But the ones on campus will be really as they have been in the past. And Pam Flaherty is going to update you a little bit on this. Pam, are you there?
Muted. Oh, thank you. I wasn't getting unmuted. Thank you. Just want to remind folks, thanks the student affairs area, especially Jonathan, did a lot of work at getting this clinic up and running. It was a lot of difficulty this year because there's a lot of competition. But we're really encouraging folks to get your shot, because what it will help is with the health systems, because we're scared that they're going to be inundated this year between the COVID and the flu happening. So if you can help and do your part and get a flu shot, we're making it easy for you. It can happen right on campus. You'll see the 4 times that we're having it. The easiest thing that can happen is just go to, Jonathan keeps posting it on our newscaster. So if you go to newscaster, you can follow the information that is posted on there in order to do it. So we're hoping that you stay healthy, and that's part of one of our jobs here in Cabinet, is to really make sure that the college is staying as healthy as possible. So that's my plug. So stay healthy.
Thanks, Pam. I appreciate that. Next slide, please. So Peter Shea is going to update us just a little bit on some professional development updates here. Peter.
There we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. President Mabry, thank you for the time to discuss our professional development initiatives. As you can all imagine, the past few months have been a very interesting chapter in MTC professional development. We've been able, with our partners across the campus, to impact the college in ways we never had before, particularly in terms of the great work we've done with Daniela Logan and Roxanne McCory in terms of online learning. Over the summertime, we did an enormous amount of Zoom trainings, at least one every week, and we were able to train several hundred members of the faculty and staff, so they would be Zoom proficient come the fall. In fact, I seem to recall one adjunct saying that this was so much better than they were being offered at other colleges. So we really flooded the zone with Zoom training in order to respond to people's requests. And again, we created also a Zoom professional development page for resources. And the feedback we've gotten so far with all these things is that people greatly appreciate this level of professional development. It really shows the power of our community at Middlesex to meet these challenging times. And so we continue to do those kind of trainings going forward so people become even more proficient, but we've also expanded them out to other initiatives as well. Along with our ongoing workshops online, professional development has also acquired a license for LinkedIn Learning, which is one of the world's largest professional development libraries. And this resource, which can be accessed on the MyMCC page, is available to faculty, staff, and current students. This is very important because as a resource for students, as well as for faculty and staff, it can make a tremendous difference. LinkedIn Learning is designed intentionally as a professional development library, touching upon a variety of topics. They have over 30,000 short course modules, ranging from anything from software training to working from a remote distance to managing remotely to making documents accessible. And there is also content on being a better online teacher, working remotely effectively. It's a very responsive library. It can be accessed 24/7. And people can curate content in the library itself for their own personal collection, which they can go into and they can stop and they can return to it at any given time. So we're very excited about the possibilities of this tool. And in terms of accessing that, obviously you can see on My Launchpad. The other web resource for seeing what's available through professional development is the professional development calendar, which you also see on the right side of your screen. If you go to the professional development page on our website and click on calendar, you'll see a series of web events that are going on both inside the college and exterior to the college. So we make a point whenever we're informed of a virtual professional development event of listing it there. So the two ways in which we communicate is through newscaster and by putting on the calendar. So we want to make sure that people are aware of all the great resources that have become available during this trying time. Could I slide back a bit for a second? Thank you. The other things we've been doing in professional development have been focused on our efforts to create a more equity-based culture. Apart from the theme that you saw at our first fall professional day and the one we'll see at the follow-up professional day on November 6th, we've been focusing on conversations about how to build an equity-based culture. We're also doing PD mini grant projects around equity building. So if people are curious about that, please feel free to reach out to my office. Another issue we should, in terms of equity, we really want to stress is web accessibility. As you know, in this time, our website has become even more crucial tool to reach students as well as faculty and staff. And so it's vitally important that the website and the web pages on it are accessible to every person who uses it, including people who might have disabilities. So with that in mind, we have done a series of web accessibility trainings we just began over the summer. There are trainings that are available in the PD Blackboard site. We will continue to do this, as well as roll out new tools that help people become aware of how to make their web pages more accessible or how to make their course shells more accessible. We've had Blackboard Ally, which is a great tool for assessing whether a course is fully accessible. And we're going forward with trainings around that. So again, we've been very conscientious of making web accessibility training a key component of our equity efforts. And apart from the virtual workshops and the conferences and these resources in LinkedIn, we're also going forward with our cybersecurity awareness training, which we began last year, and which we had a large number of faculty and staff use. In the COVID-19 environment, there are new forms of information security that we have to be aware of, particularly when many of us are working in a remote environment. So over the next couple of months, we will be providing updated cybersecurity training virtually through Proofpoint, which is a very engaging interactive tool we have available. And unlike in our last year, we now have the function to send people specific email invitations by area and department to provide them with access to an individualized series of cybersecurity awareness trainings. And there'll be more information on that as we go forward. That's a big quick overview of our major initiatives. And I guess I want to again do a big shout out to my colleagues in online learning, Roxanne and Daniela, who have been a tremendous team. And of course, to echo what Pat said, the IT people who have kept us all afloat, as well as my colleagues in HR. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for that. Next slide, please. So Beth Noel, the Director of Marketing, is going to tell us a little bit more about the 50th anniversary.
Hi, everyone. I want to be very quick in respecting everybody's time this afternoon and just remind you all that we are in our 50th anniversary celebration year. It kicked off on September 24th with the Board of Trustees meeting and also with a more robust website announcing all of the great things that are happening at the college. You can see there's a screenshot of the website there. You can access it from the homepage. There's a button right on the homepage, or you can put in the URL middlesex.mass.edu/50th. And most importantly, we really encourage you to follow our social media channels. The college's official social media channels are there on the screen. And by following them, you'll be able to keep up to date and informed about all of the 50th activities we have going on. You'll get to see Throwback Thursday photos, archival photos. You'll be alerted when there are new blog posts and new 50th videos to view. And of course, if you are following us, we encourage you to share and post. The more help that you can provide in boosting our social media signal, the better, and we would greatly appreciate it.
So Beth, did I hear that you're also going to do a video contest, a video dance contest? People can, it's called the Throwdown, and people can post their own dance. Yeah, okay. Next idea, right? Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I'm pleased to introduce the library director, Donna Maturi, who needs no introduction. And she's going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the libraries these days. Donna?
Thank you, President Mabry. And thank you everyone for this opportunity to update you on the MCC Library's work in support of faculty and student success this year. I'm afraid I am going to take a little bit of your time just to give you a complete picture of what's been happening at the library. So I'd like to share a couple of slides with you. The first one will illustrate the work that the librarians and library assistants have been doing to meet information needs since July 1. And the second will outline a new plan to increase our on-campus presence by over 50% from 16 hours to 34 hours each week. Our goal, like yours, is to best meet the needs of our students to help ensure their success at the college. So the MCC Libraries by the Numbers is a very brief and therefore incomplete snapshot of the work our librarians and library assistants has been undertaking since July of this year. As most of you know, but perhaps some of you do not, the MCC Libraries was among the first departments to return to campus to provide services, if only in a limited way, beginning in late June. Since then, we've offered 16 posted hours of on-campus services in operation. These services include scheduled curbside pickup, printing, and copying within the library spaces 4 days a week. In reality, our on-campus hours have been much greater than that. Many staff come in and are fielding emails, phone calls, and other requests for immediate services throughout the day and throughout the week. Requests for books, copies of course reserves, or printouts of faculty PowerPoints, just to name a few. Our instruction numbers speak for themselves. We are meeting students in the online learning environment just as most MCC departments are during this pandemic. Digital services have been built upon significantly in order to meet the current needs of our users. The virtual services offered by the library staff have seen success and strong use in the past 3 months. With respect to reference transactions, I will say that we find our online assistance sessions are often lengthier, more numerous, and occupy more of the librarians and staff time than meeting face-to-face. Our liaison and outreach numbers do not include our communications with faculty seeking help or support, or the many meetings and emails exchanged in faculty collaborations that allow us to launch successful library instruction classes. And just a word about embedded librarians. These librarians really function as personal librarians to the students in classes, and they provide a consistent research experience for students and create relationships that frequently persist once a class ends. This program is one example of the library's effort to adopt a case management, in quotations, approach to library services for students in the online environment, while also respecting a researcher's right to their privacy and their intellectual freedom pursuits. You'll note that our curbside delivery service has proved popular. This service is provided in addition to staff being available virtually for normally scheduled hours 8:30 a.m. to 8:15 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and Fridays 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. I believe the MCC library is one of the few departments offering regular service, albeit virtually, past 5 p.m. 4 days a week. As students, faculty, and staff operate almost exclusively within the virtual environment, traffic to our virtual branch, the library's website, has also been brisk. We've taken special effort to ensure our course and subject guides are optimized for the online learning environment. We've bolstered our digital collections to meet online needs, and we highlight these resources in the guides to both enrich and facilitate success of students' online learning experiences. The data on EDS, our EBSCO Discovery Service platform, reflects the number of times our MCC search has been used by visitors to our website. Our Access Service Librarian has overseen the quality management of over 2,000 new users to our integrated library system. And a couple of matters not reflected in the slides. We have launched an e-reserves platform and are working with faculty with course reserve materials in print to provide information to students electronically, while also ensuring that we're complying with federal copyright requirements. We are most proud of our cross-department collaboration. This summer, MCC librarians and library assistants logged in over 250 outreach calls in an effort to help boost enrollment numbers. Collaboration with other college departments brings me to our next slide. Please, Alexandra. Thank you. A proposed pilot plan to open the MCC libraries to students for greater periods of time. In addition to curbside pickup and limited printing appointments that we now offer, our plan is to offer 3 study sessions a day, 4 days a week to students in the coming weeks. I want to thank the EMT Phased Opening Task Force, Colleen Cox, Pam Flaherty, and Rebecca Newell, Rick Bass and Dan Martin, who have worked with me, and Cheryl Ruiz and Mike Mears in IT, and Scott O'Neill in enrollment, who have worked with our system librarian over the past few weeks, as well as my amazing staff of warrior librarians and library assistants who have both worked diligently and at warp speed to put this pilot plan together, and who have helped to ensure that we could staff the plan safely and adequately. We are putting the finishing touches on the system for students to reserve time in the libraries, and we'll let you know when this 4-week pilot is launched very soon. Our target date is next Tuesday, which may be a tinge optimistic. So stay tuned, and thank you for your time and attention.
And a big thanks to all the work you and the librarians are doing to keep our students connected and on the path to success. And the help for faculty too is greatly appreciated. Okay, as we move forward, wanted to talk a little bit about the fall semester and where we are with our enrollment at this point. I think we all realize that we made the right decision last May to go online this fall. I want to acknowledge the collaboration with the faculty that really made this possible. This gave us the time to get ready and do it right and do it safely. So we've seen many other schools, colleges, and universities struggle with this, but I think the team here did a great job, worked together to solve the problems. So it also gave the faculty the time to prepare courses for the fall. And I would say the quality of our courses that are online now are second to none. We have some lab classes, as we know, and some hands-on classes on campus, but it's about 5% of our student population at this time. Most staff continue to work remotely, and we will be staying that way throughout the fall and spring semester. I don't see that changing. So the models we had during peak enrollment and off-peak will probably continue. But again, it's something we continually evaluate as we go forward. So next slide, please. So give you just a second to look at this. So despite the amazing efforts of marketing, enrollment services, admissions, the SIC staff, our super advisors, financial aid, student accounts, and many others, as I said earlier, they're really swimming against a strong tide here. They really work brilliantly and tirelessly in a very tough time. So I don't want these enrollment numbers to reflect badly on anybody. As you can see, it's about the range at the community colleges across the state, and they vary depending on the communities. And again, this is not what we're doing or what we're not doing. It's a larger issue. Really, what we are seeing these days is that this pandemic hit low-income areas and communities of color much harder than anywhere else. The recession, which damaged the economy from the bottom up, took out tens of thousands of jobs in retail, service, and hospitality. And this is also disproportionately affecting those communities of color, low income, the communities we happily serve every day. It's had a very damaging impact on them. As we all know, many of our students have had to work throughout this in less than safe conditions, and they've really put in a lot of amazing work. We know that a lot of our students and former students work in healthcare, are frontline health providers, and really have been really helping keep the Commonwealth healthy and helped many people survive. But our students are really struggling. With no additional help from Washington, they are trying to make it through. And also, we've seen that with the chaotic and uncertain K through 12 schedules, many families, and including many mothers, have found it really difficult, if not impossible, to think about returning to school this semester. This unequal impact has severely impacted our communities, the communities of low-income, first-generation, and immigrants. And I'm very concerned that if this economic recession lasts another year or even two, that this will really get these students off track and they may never get back on track. I've expressed these concerns to the Board of Higher Education, to the Secretary of Education, to the Commissioner, and I also included them very forcefully in my remarks to the Joint Higher Education Commission yesterday. It's something we all need to be aware of and concerned about, but again, these are issues larger than themselves. And I hope at some point our nation gets its act together and really helps the real people who are out there who need the help, who need to move forward. We continue to talk to our delegation in DC, which is doing all they can. They're very supportive and very helpful. But as we all know, that is quite literally a crazy environment right now. All of the community colleges except one have really seen large declines and are struggling really to help their students just as we are. So this is not unfamiliar. The presidents talk about it at least once a week, and we've been trying to help each other as we reach out to help our students. So next slide, please. So this really 22-year credit hour graph shows this quite clearly. So this graph shows fall enrollment up through fall 21, where we have the budgeted enrollment, that's B for FY 21, which was 126,000, and the updated for fall 21, which is let's see, 110,000. So that was significantly less than we counted. This really illustrates the trends we have been dealing with. We anticipate we're going to see significant decline again in fall 22. This just shows fall, but as we can see that it has been declining for a number of years as we have been dealing with that quite successfully, but the steep drops in the last year and possibly into next year are going to provide some additional challenges. As I mentioned above, the pandemic and recession have really struck our communities hard. The state universities are down about 8%, and UMass is about flat at this point in terms of enrollment. I'll talk a little bit more about the universities in UMass tomorrow, but they have a whole different set of financial challenges than we do, and theirs are less about enrollment than they are about housing and dining, dormitories, and other issues. We tried quite hard to gain more students who were concerned about going away to college, but this seems to have paid only small dividends. A few took us up on this offer, but fewer than we had hoped for. Again, I will provide further update on higher education in Massachusetts tomorrow at the FSA meeting. I know this is a very sobering graph and it lays out the challenges we are facing, but we all need to be honest about the reality, and I am sure we will find creative solutions to this situation. Next page, please. So everything on the table right now, we are looking at a lot of uncertainties, although we have seen student enrollment for the fall, and that really helps us out. So the Massachusetts appropriation is still unknown. There was a big meeting going on today with the chairs from the Ways and Means committees to set out some of the parameters for the budget discussion. So we should know a bit more on that fairly soon. We have been talking to our legislators, and we have been advocating collectively across the Commonwealth as well. So we know that student enrollment is down. We are hoping for fairly flat funding, but again, that's unknown. What's going to happen with federal stimulus money is another unknown. That helped our students and helped us. I'll talk more about that in the next slide. But that money is running out both for our students and for the college. And in the commentary I've been reading about the economy, it's really starting to, the impact of this stimulus money on the economy is dissipating as well. And we've only seen that about half the jobs that were lost in the spring have come back, which means there are still an awful lot of people on unemployment or underemployed. So we cannot just put Band-Aids on the problem that this is presenting. We are going to have to think long-term on this because, frankly, I don't think this is going to be an issue just this year. I'm sure it's going to be an issue next year, and I'm not sure for how much longer after that. We need to make some difficult decisions, keeping the long-term interests of the college in mind. It would be all too easy to take a path to postpone those difficult decisions, and that would sooner or later, probably sooner, leave the college very vulnerable. That's not a position I want to put this great college in. So, as we said, the next couple of years are going to be not easy in terms of the finances, and we're going to have to sit down and work together on that. As I started to say, everything is really on the table. We're looking at our reserves. We're looking at postponing some projects. We will further reduce travel, take the money from that budget because nobody's going anywhere. There are no face-to-face conferences. So that's really an easy one, but not a tremendous amount of money. There are some savings from reduced use of the campuses. It's not a huge amount. We're working on documenting that at this point. So we're really trying to look at every corner of the budget and every corner of the college. This is an ongoing process, and we will be updating the board in October and working with them to see where we're going to go at that point. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on where the CARES Act money went. So we received about 1.9 million for students, and this went to some emergency relief in internet services. As we all know, the way the CARES Act was written, it made it hard for community colleges to really help our students in a significant way. But we have distributed most of that money, and we'll finish distributing the rest of that money in the spring. The institutional part of it, the part B that we received, was really invested in our faculty and our staff by allocating reassigned time and support so that more than 400 courses could be converted. And that took about 1.2 million of the 1.9 million in the fall. And we'll be using more of that CARES Act money in the spring to compensate faculty for converting some additional courses. And that will be finishing up really what we have within Part B and Part A of the CARES Act money. We've also received a few $100,000 from FEMA and NEMA and that's really what we've been using to make sure we have adequate PPE and face masks, and that we've been able to do the cleaning that's necessary across the college. So that's helped a little bit on that. The gear money, this was also federal money that Governor Baker distributed a few weeks ago, although that hasn't hit our accounts yet. And this will help us pay for the asymptomatic COVID testing that we're doing and some of our other really pandemic related expenses. At this point, the state of Massachusetts has allocated no dollars to support public higher education through the pandemic. Next slide, please. So looking at spring, we're going to make all our decisions, both about spring, summer, and fall, based on the best information available. In my view of this, and certainly others may see it differently, but I really don't see large-scale changes in the near future. The Commonwealth has done a good job of getting a really large outbreak under control, but it's taken a tremendous amount of effort and discipline by everyone across the Commonwealth. And we see that anytime that discipline breaks down, we start to have increased cases and more clusters and outbreaks. So we have to remain vigilant, and we have to remain very careful. I'm sure that you're like me. This has become a routine. I have hand sanitizer everywhere. I always have a mask or two, and I'm getting, it's becoming much more of a routine to be careful. But I'm not out much. I'm very careful when I'm around other people, and make sure that I maintain my social distance and that wash my hands all the time. So I don't see it changing. I think the vaccine is still a ways off, and that's just having a vaccine cleared. We've all seen the incredible conflict over this issue, but it's still going to be a while before we have a vaccine we know that's effective. It's also going to be an uphill battle to convince people that it's safe because of the way some of the work has been done and some of the things that have been said in the political realm. So it is going to be a while before we see widespread vaccination and before we see this pandemic abate in a way that we can go back to having more things on campus, more students on campus, more classes on campus. So I think it's going to be a while. We are learning a tremendous amount from our students and from our faculty, and that all of this information is helping us to continue to keep the campus safe and to help keep students on track. At this point, I would like to ask Provost Sisson to talk a little bit more about the planning for spring 21.
Thanks, President Mabry. It's great to see all of you, even though we're doing that virtually again. And we did quite a bit of updating you on where we are with all of our services. Just wanted to mention a couple of things that has been mentioned already, but the tremendous work by the faculty and all the staff in going from 20% online to 95% online for this fall, thanks to the MOA and our use of our CARES Act money. As the President has mentioned, conversion of 400 new online courses added to our repertoire here at the college with a cost of about $1.2 million. All of our student support services being moved online have really allowed us to think very carefully about how we best need to present spring. I want to thank the deans, the department chairs and coordinators, the faculty mentors, the staff out of online learning, the enrollment staff, because we started very early in September with the department chairs and coordinators meeting, talking about how we would construct the schedule this spring in the best, most collaborative manner that we could. And I think everyone has really kept to a lot of that work. So we created a production schedule that was slightly different in starting the schedule practically from scratch. I talked with those chairs and coordinators and the deans about a prescribed sort of methodology to be able to look at an appropriate percentage of a reduction of sections that we would offer in the spring, with methodologies to create zero cap or shadow sections if we needed to add additional sections as we roll through enrollment for the spring. We've talked a little bit about course caps and where we might be able to make adjustments there. We've had extensive conversations about the best approach from a scheduling perspective about asynchronous and synchronous offerings. I know that many of those discussions have happened at department meetings. We've really asked folks to focus on our full-time faculty and making sure that they have the workload that they need, and then also to create an initial delay on any DCE assignments. Although that is not ideal, and most students want to see names next to sections, we initially need to make sure that we have comforted all of our full-time faculty that they have an appropriate full-time workload that we know will run in the spring. We've talked a lot about the importance of the academic maps. As the President has said, it's not just about keeping safe, it's also about making sure all of our returning students and our new students are being able to take all the courses that they need to take to complete their programs. So those maps are critically important. And then looking at any off-cycle offerings and transcript reviews for students to make sure that we can respond to them through independent studies is critically important. I want to point out that we've had great success in using Minimester as an expansion of our semester. As you well know, we've added multiple different forms of our semester over the last 5 years, including winter session and quick start, etc. But really the Minimester is the one that's most recent for us in the last couple of years. And the percentage of that schedule that we create for the spring to be able to best respond to changes in our environment is really going to be the Minimester response. So that will be a specific percentage of our semester, and we're trying to manage that very carefully based on what we've dealt with the fall. And of course, making sure we look at winter session as well. We've had some great Macer sessions and some great conversations with our union leadership. They've asked us to really do a more extensive use of our waitlist system, and we've talked about how to implement that as well. For the spring, we have approximately 77 courses that need to be converted to online with a cost of about $118,000. So you can see the college has completely invested between reassigned time and course development with $1.2 million in the fall, and then another $118,000 for the spring. The spring schedule, I want to thank the departments and the divisions that have been working very diligently, faculty who have had their availability forms into their deans. The schedule we've created for the production schedule for spring is going very smoothly. I know that those recent conversations have happened in department and division meetings. I know that the first draft has gone into the enrollment area this past Monday. The registrar's office is going to be working very diligently to input those changes and return that draft to the deans by October 22nd. And then the department chairs are going to, and the deans are going to have an opportunity to take a second look at it on October 29th. We intend to have that schedule ready for student and faculty viewing on Friday, November 6th. And then we will open for registration for the spring on Monday, November 9th. So this has been an unusual semester, obviously, and we continue to make sure that we are doing everything we can to meet student needs, and at the same time, try and make sure that we are taking care of faculty needs and make sure that the production schedule stays on task so that we can start spring semester off and with winter session as well, make sure that we can start and continue to grow enrollment where we can. So I just want to take this time to thank folks for the work that we've done and the faculty have done about converting those needed courses. And again, as it's noted here, we're going to continue to adjust the schedule to meet students' needs, and we're going to be surveying students and identifying work with students through the Student Success Committee of FSA to talk about the kind of impact that's happening with students and how we can best serve them. So I want to thank everyone that's really adjusted to this effort, and we're hoping to have a strong spring enrollment. What I would say is our 100% completion project that happened through SOTL is incredibly important for us to continue to have faculty addressing the idea of it's so much easier for us to retain the students that we have than bring in new students. And that usually is something that does not happen in large numbers in the spring. So every student matters this fall, and everything we can do to be flexible, resilient, and assist them is being done. And I appreciate that because I think it's going to make a huge difference in terms of the students that we have for the spring. Everyone's going through a lot of changes right now in terms of adjusting to the online environment for faculty and students, and everybody's doing yeoman's task to make sure that students are as best prepared and able to accomplish the work as possible. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to say that every piece of work that we do right now with our current students can make a huge difference for their preparation for the spring. So thank you for all that work.
And I want to thank Provost Sisson and his hardworking academic deans, Kate, Kathy, Ellen, Judy, and I'm forgetting somebody there, right? Donna, and who else am I? Matthew. Oh, how come?
Matthew, Ellen.
Ellen, I got, yeah.
They'll remember this.
I know. That's why I'm laughing. I know I'll get clobbered, but no, they have really been putting in a tremendous amount of work in their creativity and their way of thinking through problems and not just, doing the same thing. I mean, they're really doing a great job. I appreciate that. As we talked about with spring, most staff will continue to work remotely. We'll continue to assess student needs, but I don't really see any changes in the spring from what we did in the fall. We'll probably have a few more staff on campus during the peak enrollment period and right around the start of the semester, and then we'll evaluate when we can ease off and just have a minimal presence. Again, we'll look at what the flows were during the fall, and we will make the adjustments that are necessary at that time using the best information that we have. I always have to put the caveat in, we will have to make adjustments if state guidelines change. Again, I don't see that at this time. There's a lot of talk about, a second wave and a flu this fall, but I think we've seen that the precautions that have limited and blocked the spread of the coronavirus will also do the same for the flu virus. So I'm hoping that it will not get worse during the fall and that we'll be able to continue on the path that we are. But I do think, as I said, it's going to be a little while before we really come to the other side of this. There's always going to be questions about summer and fall. We will make timely decisions so that faculty, staff, and students can make the appropriate plans. It is a bit unknown at this time, but trust that we will keep you fully informed. And, as we watch the environment around us and how this pandemic moves, that will be what shapes our decisions on what we can do. So that will be the leading indicator for all of us and how we're working there. Okay, next slide, please. So as we ask, if you would please use the chat function to submit questions, and those questions will be read aloud by Beth, and I'll answer them, or one of us will answer them at the very best we can at this point. If I could have the next slide, I just want to answer a question that came in. We got a couple questions. One of them was answered by Patrick earlier. Have we made a decision about the status, remote versus in person for the spring? Yes, as we've talked about repeatedly here, we're going to be in a very similar status to the fall, with the overwhelming majority of our classes online, with the overwhelming majority of our staff working remotely, with some limited hours based on the need from students in the spring semester. So we'll look closely at that. We will, again, even with those limited on-campus presence, we will evaluate that for safety at every step of the way. So we'll be very, very careful in how we do this. Just as Donna pointed out, they're looking at a pilot. Again, we're trying things, but we're trying them only after we've worked out a really safe way to do these things. I think the professional staff who came in this semester saw that we'd taken great pains to make sure that their environment was safe, and that we could really make sure we were taking care of our students, but taking care of our faculty and staff as well. So at this point, Beth, do you have some questions?
Yes, President Mabry, we do. The first question that we have is, now that the library will be expanding hours, what impact will this have on the professional staff hours on campus?
I think I would have to ask Donna that, because you know, this is I'm learning about that today as well. So I'm not sure.
So thank you, President Mabry. I'm happy to field that question. So we have had professional staff who have been coming in thus far with our hours being open 16, 1 day a week. So we're increasing by more than 50%, which means that each, you know, professional staff person will be coming in 2 days a week, but no more than that. So the pilot plan was really crafted with the individuals who will be coming into the buildings. That was the team that worked to determine what we thought made sense for the students, if we wanted to offer the space for study or other time. The 3 sessions that we're offering on a daily basis, a student can avail themselves of only 1 session, so that we can't have a student say they want to come in for all 3 sessions that day just because they'd like to camp out in the library. In terms of safety and viral load, we thought 1 hour and 45 minutes was adequate, or what we felt safely offering at this time. So both, and that, you know, the increase in amount of time at the libraries, that would be the same for our AFSCME people as well. They will be increasing their hours in the building, but we're trying very hard to do it in a safe and thoughtful way. And I want to make sure that the staff who are coming into work are very comfortable with what we are proposing. And since it has come from them in consultation with me, I believe that that is the case.
And just to add to that, we've had multiple conversations with, I've multiple conversations with Donna, and what we're trying to do is be as responsive to student need. We are really trying to use the best equity lens that we can to provide a safe and appropriate study environment for students on a limited basis. And again, this is a pilot. We're going to watch this very carefully. We have been able to accommodate a number of students who've been moving from their face-to-face classes, I mean their online classes and their face-to-face labs. We've been doing what we can to accommodate those students as well. So what we've attempted to do is really be as responsive to students as possible. And I applaud the library for considering this pilot, and I've asked them to do that. And obviously we're going to be watching this very, very carefully and using all safety protocol. Our first priority is always safety of the students and of the staff.
Thank you, Donna, and thanks, Phil, for that. Beth, do we have additional questions?
We do. The next question that we have is the college planning for layoffs?
At this point, we're trying to look at everything else first, but we do have to plan at some point. We have to start thinking about that as well, unfortunately. As I pointed out, we still only know some of the pieces of the puzzle. And so we're trying to start from there and think about, okay, now that we realize we're going to be in this virtual environment for a while, how do we do that well? How do we shape this so it meets our students? And then what do we need to do this? And what do we need to do it well? So again, we have to think both a bit long-term here, and but we also have some short-term imperatives in our finances that are precipitated by the significant decline in enrollment revenue. So we're going to be looking, as I said, in a range of options for this. And I don't have the answers because our discussions are really beginning on that. But I'll be perfectly honest that that may be part of the puzzle that we may have to put that piece in at a certain time. But we are going to look at a number of other possibilities and then see what we have to do. We're not starting there, but we may have to play that card at a certain point.
Next question. Since there have been retrenchments and part-time layoffs and staff have moved into different roles at the institution, is the college able to send out an announcement about these changes so that as employees we can appropriately refer students to the correct department and person?
Good. That's a good suggestion. And as with other suggestions we've gotten in these town halls, I'll take that back to my team. I'll ask HR, how we might go about this. And we'll think through what the proper way is to keep everybody informed on that. That's really a great idea. And we'll look into that and see what we can do. Thank you.
Next question. Is the college considering offering study space for students who do not have suitable or stable housing, or if they do not have a good environment for studying?
Mm-hmm. Well, we already do offer limited space for students. We've been carefully monitoring the requests and demands for that. Colleen Cox has really helped out and done a tremendous amount of work on that. Colleen, you want to talk a little bit about what you've done? And while she's getting unmuted, you can also see that the library is really reacting and responding, I would say, to this request. It's something we're watching very carefully. We know who our students are and that some of them have connectivity and study space issues, and we're trying to figure out how to do this safely. Colleen?
Sure, President Mabry. Yes, we have identified space on both campuses for students who need a computer, students who need quiet study, and students who need just a space to bring their own device. As I said, we've identified spaces in academic resources in Bedford and in the Cowan Center in Lowell. We're working with students on a case-by-case basis. Every student that has requested it has been accommodated. It's everything from 45 minutes, an hour and a half, to several hours on a particular day. We have students who have a number of people in their homes or young children and need to find alternative space. So the dean of students, Pam Flaherty, and her staff are referring students to me. I am reaching out to those students, and we've accommodated all the requests to date.
Thanks, Colleen, for that. And again, this is something we're very concerned about and monitoring closely. but we have to be careful and do this carefully. So, you know, we're looking at both sides of that equation. We are not throwing the doors open, but we're trying to accommodate those students who express a need for this. Next question, please.
Yes, this next question, I believe, is for Provost Sisson. And with the success of mini-mesters, is the college looking to shift more courses from the traditional 6-week fall-spring semester to the mini-mester format?
That's a great question. And in fact, it's something that I've talked about for a long time. Two things we've been monitoring that, of course, has been of concern for faculty, and we're trying to make sure that we have good data on it, is the course completion of what occurs between something that happens in the 7.5-week semester and what happens in a 15 and 16-week semester. There are colleges across the country that have moved completely to this shorter semester, because we know that all the data tells us that fewer things can happen to somebody over the course of 7 or 8 weeks than in the course of 15 to 16 weeks. And so there is a true advantage to this. It also allows us to admit students more on a rolling basis, in the sense of getting them engaged in their academic program and their coursework. So it's not just a hard start in September, but a start that happens later in October and early November, and then one that can happen again in January, and one that can happen again in March. So it really has helped redefine how we can be responsive to students. I think we have to do this very carefully, and I think we have to do it very planfully, and I think we have to be very cautious about using data. And that's why this semester is going to be critical for us to follow that data, because this is the largest population of mini-mester students that we've had in the history of our attempts at doing this. And in fact, we've been very, very slow to move immediately to this schedule. And the other part of that is that we have to also figure out how this works, in essence, for faculty workload over the course of a given 15-week semester, because our contracts are not necessarily built for these sort of shorter sessions, and one we have to figure out. And we've also experimented with making sure that we can address full-time faculty workload with some of the creativity around scheduling. And we've done that for a number of individuals. So I would say that the answer is yes. We're very carefully looking at the percentage, as I mentioned earlier, of each semester as we have moderate growth in this area. And it's something we have to consider for spring. And we will probably see a larger plan for an entire academic year coming into fall 2021 and into our spring 2022 semester.
Okay.
Thank you, Provost.
Next question.
Sure. For the next question, what is the college doing to take into account equity among personnel? We use the word equity for students, but we also need to think about equity for personnel.
The word equity is used in so many different ways that I'm really, I'm not fully understanding what the focus of the question is across the board. It's difficult to treat everybody completely equally, because we have different jobs that require different, expertise and different schedules. So, it's impossible for some of our people to work off campus and possible for others. So again, equality is difficult, but we're trying to stick to the principles of how do we serve our students, how do we maintain our facilities, and how do we move forward as best we can and as safely as we can. In just a second, I'll ask Mary Emmerich to pull this, talk a little bit more about this. But equity is, it can be used many different ways, and sometimes it's a little hard to understand exactly where this is going. Mary, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think, additional information regarding what the question, related to, if it's staff development or opportunities for growth in kind of career path for employees at the college. It's definitely a component of our search process when we have opportunities and we post jobs internally to evaluate and consider really the best qualified candidate for that growth and opportunity moving forward. So I guess I would just need some more clarity as to which area or specific, you know, in thinking about equity for staff, because I think of the whole employee life cycle and really the opportunities that staff have through their careers for development. A lot of our professional development opportunities and communities of practice are looking at providing those resources, tools, and development opportunities for all faculty and staff. Additionally, the Leading for Change working group is really a collaboration with representatives across the college, really focusing on alignment with our strategic goals for the college, and really a forefront, not only equity on the student side, but also our faculty and staff. So
I do have a follow-up from the person who asked that question, and it says balancing providing equity for students, but also realizing that it puts certain members of the college in a compromising position. So it's about on-campus requirements for personnel.
Right. We have asked all the managers to be flexible and sensitive to the positions of the staff and what we need to do. And it is, we've asked them to balance that and really look at that. We understand that people have different situations and that we're trying to be very mindful of those and trying to be working as carefully as we can within the parameters that we're allowed to. So we are aware that there are difficulties there. We've asked our managers to think through these, to work with individuals, and if they have questions, to talk to HR to see what is possible there. So again, something we are sensitive to and something we are working our way through. In the larger picture, this whole world has changed right now, and we are trying as an institution to figure out how to be fair and how to be safe, how to meet our mission, and how to balance all this in this new world and in this new environment. And there's so many different situations and nuances that we are working through. But again, the key is we've tried to really work through these in a fair way and in a sensitive way and in a flexible way if we can. So it really is, something that is evolving as we learn and as we figure out what is the best way to move forward here. So something we'll continue to work on and continue to listen to our staff and be sensitive to their concerns. Next question, please, Beth.
Yes, I think this is probably a question for our CIO. Have the hotspots been set up in the Lowell and Bedford parking lots?
I suspect in the next week or two, as you can imagine, we're not the only game in town requesting this. So there's been a backlog on the vendor. The contracts were processed maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We're trying very hard to get an installation date from them, but I anticipate by the next couple weeks.
Great, thanks, Joe. And I think that that may be a help for some of our students. Beth, next question, please.
Sure. President Mabry, what specific approaches has MCC and other community colleges in the state taken in the past 7 months to advocate the state legislature for appropriate funding?
There have been multiple ways we have done this. One, we have developed a 2-page document that all presidents have been sending out to their delegations. They've been following them up with phone calls so that many of us have been recently on the phone with members of our delegation, so that we have continued to do that. At our weekly meeting, we have had the co-chair of the Higher Education Committee, Jeff Roy. He's come more than once. Yesterday, myself and others advocated to the Joint Committee on Higher Education for additional funding. We have also made this clear to Secretary Pizer. I was on with him twice last week in different meetings, and also to the commissioner. Tomorrow, the president's meeting is, we're going to have that also with the chair of the Board of Higher Education, Chris Gabrielli, and we will be voicing those concerns to him as well. So suggestions on how we can do more with our delegation as they're looking at this, I think that's really a key. I do not think that we've seen no assurances from the Baker administration that we would be level funded, even though they expressed those assurances to both K through 12 and the cities and towns. So I'm not seeing any indication at this point that the Baker administration is going to push for that, but it really will be something from the legislature. So that has been where we have been focusing our efforts at this point. And again, this is something that if anybody has any suggestions, please send them to me. I'd be more than happy to act on them if there's something that will really help the college. Next question.
Right now, there are no other questions sitting in the chat. As I did just put out to everyone, there is a little bit of time left on the agenda. So if you have any questions, please type them in and we will address them as best we can.
Okay.
Oh, I have another one.
Okay, great.
MTA is holding a standout to encourage full funding for all education levels. Is this something that you would support members of MCC attending or having an event like this, a standout?
I think, well, I'd need to know more about it, but in general, I would say that we've always encouraged members of our faculty and staff at the college to advocate for our interests. And actually, it is well within, your rights to be doing that, to be active citizens, to be parts of your community, to be contacting your legislators, to do this. I think these, the legislators do not often get a flood of emails on these issues, so that, if you would contact the local legislators in your district, I think it'll make a difference. So that would be one thing that we could all do. As I said, I've been on the phone recently with a number of legislators and been talking to them about it, testifying at committee meetings, and that activity will continue as well. The details of what the standout means and exactly what it was, I would have to, have a better understanding. But basically, yes, it is important for people to, advocate for us, and to really hope that we get some better funding. That's been a source of frustration for all of us, whether they're in a union or whether they're not, that, as we all know, the equity agenda is great. With no funding to help the equity agenda, it's hard to really put in place significant changes. So, again, we will do as much as we can there. Any other questions?
There's nothing else waiting in the queue.
Right. while we're waiting for that, I just want to, tell everybody how important it is to, in these crazy times, to stay connected and to really maintain your sense of community. I know I've been finding new ways, mostly digital, to stay connected with my family, friends, and colleagues. I've had a number of Zoom dinners with my daughters and their families. And we've really tried to keep in touch. I find I'm calling some of my older friends more often. My friends in Arizona, I've spoken to both of the last 2 weekends. I've, talked, let's say I've listened to my sister several times a week. And, it's how do we really, find ways to get through this and stay sane. It really is also about cultivating those good habits to maintain your physical and mental health. It's different for everybody. I imagine your neighborhood's like mine. There are more people out walking now. I hope they continue through as the weather cools off, but there are people out there and people doing lots of it. I think Tom and I have probably, stopped our pond swimming for the summer, that the water's starting to get cold, even with a wetsuit on, but that just means there is, more time for, running and riding. It's really quite beautiful out there on the weekends, and it's really going to, work quite well. But again, it's different for everybody. And also, maintain that sense of community with your colleagues, and keep in touch with them. And, if you can, call them or even Zoom with them, because sometimes it is better to see them than just talk to them. And Beth, I see we have one more question, I think.
We do. Would the college benefit from an early retirement incentive program?
That's something we are actively looking into. And are considering. So it's part of what's on the table to examine and see whether this makes sense for us or not. Yes. Okay, then I think I'm going to wind this up at this point. And again, you've heard all of us say how much we appreciated all of you and what you're doing. We know it's not easy. We know it's hard. We know you've been putting in a lot and that you've really done quite a bit. And that, we greatly appreciate what you're doing to keep your students on track, to support the activities of the college. We will be having another town hall in the first week in November. And tomorrow at FSA, I'm going to talk about some more of the state activities and meetings that have been going on to fill in the college community a little bit further on some of the things that I mentioned today on that level. But again, thank you very much for attending today. There will be a recording available for this so that those who could not attend today or want to view it at a different time and place will be able to see this. So again, thanks very much, and I appreciate greatly everything all of you are doing to keep this great college moving forward. Thanks now.